So, hello and welcome. It has been a great time throughout this course, and I hope you've been learning a lot. This is the Project Management Professional Training and Certification course, and we have been on the week one, module one, which is the introduction to project management and the PMI framework. So I hope you have been following. So far, we've gone through quite a number of sections in the module one. And in today's class, we're going to be concluding the module one. All right. So without further ado, I would like us to jump onto my screen where I'll share my slides with you. At the end of today's class, you're going to be given a quiz, all right, which encompasses almost everything you've been learning throughout this module one. Okay, so it's just to test your level of knowledge to know how much you have grasped from the modules so far. Okay, so after this class, ensure to click the link that will be sent to you and go ahead and take the quiz. All right, now remember, all the previous classes are already available to you. So if you missed anyone, you can just go ahead and visit the platform and watch them. All right. You don't need to miss any part. So it's a whole lot that have been packaged in this training program. And the essence is to make you a seasoned project management professional who is able to deliver, right, quality projects wherever you find yourself. Okay, so without further ado, let me jump into my screen right now as I walk you through the course material for today. Okay, my name is Chike Onyekachuku, and I'm your host and trainer for this course. So good to have you here. Let's go now. So I hope you can see my screen right here. Okay, so here we are. So we said the components of the guide are actually the key components in project management. All right. These components, when effectively managed, will definitely result in successful completion of any project, no matter the scale or complexity. And the components we'll be talking about are very important that you will do well to take note of each and every one of them to ensure that you pay attention to them during the course of your project. All right, because all these components interrelate with one another. So you need to know how they work together to be able to give you a successful result. All right. In the last class, we were able to look at the interrelationship of these key components. Okay, we talked about the project life cycle. All right, that's one of the components. We talked about the project phase. We talked about the phase gates, the project management processes, right? And then we went into the project management process groups. This was where we actually stopped in our last class, where we looked into the 5 project management process groups, which are very key. Every other thing comes under these 5 process groups. There we talked about the initiating process group, the planning process group, the execution, the monitoring and control, and closing process group. Okay. So today we're going to be going into the project management knowledge areas, right? And there are actually 10 knowledge areas. One is the project integration management. This actually includes the activities, all right, in your project management process. And these activities actually help you to identify, define, combine, unify, and coordinate the various processes and project management activities within the project management process groups. All right. So when you talk of integration management, it has to do with coordinating and combining the various processes, right, from all the process groups to be able to give you the results that you're looking for at the end of the day. And next is, this includes the processes required, that the project includes all the work required to complete the project successfully. Okay, so when we talk about scope management, we're actually looking at, you know, the boundaries, right? The boundaries of your project, where it begins and where it ends. So as a project manager, you have to understand what is included in your project and what is not included, so as not to go beyond the scope of your project. You understand? When you go beyond the scope of your project, then definitely you are going to extend your budget. You're going to extend the time, all right? And you don't want that to happen. Will now amount to the inclusion of more resources, okay, which you didn't plan for. So it's important that you understand the scope of your project and make sure that you operate within that scope, okay? So actually do that. This includes all those processes performed to manage the timely completion of the project. All right. Every project has a particular time frame. So as a project manager, you have to understand the time frame that is allocated for your project and ensure that each activity within the project falls within the allocated time. All right. That's what we mean by schedule management. Scheduling is the allocation of time to each activity in your project. Okay. This includes the processes involved in planning, estimating, budgeting, financing, funding, managing, and controlling costs so that the project can be completed within the approved budget. Every project budget. Okay, so as a project manager, you need to ensure that you work within the budget that has been assigned for the project so that you don't have a creep in your budget. Okay, next is project quality management. This includes the processes for incorporating the organization's quality policy regarding planning, managing, and controlling projects and product quality requirements. At the beginning of your project, you definitely have expectation, you have your target, you have your objectives from your stakeholders, okay? In terms of quality, in terms of specifications, right, of the deliverable or the outcome of your project. So quality management helps you to manage and control the projects and product quality requirements. Everything that you have to do to ensure that at the end of the day, you arrive at the intended specification for your project. Next is project resource management. This includes processes required to identify, acquire, and manage the resources needed for the successful completion of the project. So, resources, when we talk about resources, we are not just talking about equipment and tools. We're also referring to people, human resources, subject matter experts. Every project will include different types of resources, different people with different qualifications, with different expertise. All right. So, as a project manager, you need to know the kind of expertise that is required for your project. All right, and ensure that you get the best, so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to deliver a quality work. So project resource management has to do with identifying the type of resources, the people that you need in your project, where to get them, all right, and how to onboard them on your project team to be able to work together and deliver to you a quality project at the end of the day. So next is project communications management. This includes the processes required to ensure timely and appropriate planning, collection, creation, distribution, storage, retrieval, management, control, monitoring, and ultimate disposition of project information. All right, so project communication management has to do with how you manage the flow of information regarding your project among your stakeholders, among your team members, among the resources, the people that you have within the project, and even outside of the project. All right, so you have to be able to plan, right, how information will be collated and how it will be transmitted to the stakeholders of the project in such a way that everyone understands the requirements, all right, and the feedback or the action that is expected of them. So next, risk management planning, identification, analysis, response planning, response implementation, and monitoring risk on the project. Every project has certain risks that are unique to it, right? Risks are things that can actually impede the project, that can stop the flow of the project. Okay, for example, a supplier not showing up, all right, at the expected time, or with the expected specification or quality of product or material, right, that he has been asked to supply. That could be a risk. Equipment failure during the course of the project, that could be a risk. All right. Conflicts within the project team that eventually leads to delays or hampering the flow of the project. This could be a risk. All right. So all these are things that you have to take into perspective at the outset of the project. All right, so that you know how to manage them if at all they come up. And that's where we have response planning. You have to plan your response when any of these things come up. How are you going to respond? All right, how are you going to implement that response? How are you going to mitigate the risk to ensure that it doesn't actually stop your project? Okay. So next is project procurement management. This includes processes required to purchase or acquire products, services, or results needed from outside the project team. Okay. So in procurement management, we talk about make or buy analysis. All right. Make or buy analysis. Most of the time, we'll ask the question, are we going to make this thing? Are we going to buy it? Boils down to you as a project manager and maybe the project management leadership to be able to know that. So in procurement, you're going to you're going to be looking at the options that are actually available to you. All right. So what products are you going to need for your project? What services are you needing for your project? Right? What results are you needing for this project? So you now have to plan how to acquire them and bring them into the project. Okay. So next is project stakeholder management. This includes the processes required to identify the people, groups, or organizations that could impact or be impacted by the project, analyze stakeholder expectations and their impact on the project, and develop project execution. Okay, every project has what we call stakeholders. All right, stakeholders. The stakeholders are people, organizations, or groups that way or the other moment could impact the project or could be impacted by the project. So you need to analyze who these people are, identify them, and understand what their expectations are, what their requirements are, right? And their level of involvement in the project. Okay. And then you can now develop effective management strategies to engage them, right? All through the project. So this is very, very important. If you neglect stakeholders in your project management endeavors, it could impede the flow of your project. Okay. So stakeholder management is a very, very important aspect that you need not neglect as a project manager. Okay. So those are the knowledge areas we have in project management, about 10 of them. So you need to study them very, very carefully and see how they apply to your project. Right? Remember, we have 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas. These are very, very important for you to know as a project manager. So next, let's look at processes and interaction. How does this process groups and this knowledge areas, including the processes that are within them, how do they interact with one another? Processes. Each knowledge areas contain specific processes that guide project management activities. For example, the scope management, project scope management that we talked about. And the scope management knowledge area includes processes like collect requirements and control scope. So within each of these knowledge areas, we have processes. All right, processes, and you have to understand the specific processes within each knowledge area. Then also the interactions of the processes. Each of these processes are interconnected. You have to know that. And processes from different knowledge areas interact holistic approach to project management. So within each knowledge areas, we have processes, right? And they interact with one another to give you a holistic project management at the end of the day. Okay. All right. So what are the key takeaways from this particular section, components, key components of the PMBOK guide? And so far, we've seen that we'll be able to understand the significance of the components of the guide in the PMBOK framework. We'll be able to recognize the 5 project management process groups and their purposes. Remember, we talked about execution, money control, and then closing. So those are the 5 process groups that we have. Then also, we'll be able to familiarize ourselves with the 10 knowledge areas and their respective processes. Now, like I said before, you have a detailed explanation of all process groups and knowledge areas in the PMBOK guide, which you already have in your possession. So you would do well to visit the PMBOK guide and then look through these process groups and knowledge areas in more detail. All right. So lastly, you'll be able to appreciate the interconnections among the processes, knowledge areas, and process groups. Okay. So congratulations. We've come to the end of the components of the guide. That's section 8. The next section, which is section 9, we'll be looking at, right, how do you tailor the various processes to be able to give you a successful project at the end of the day. Okay. So now let's move into the next section, which is section 10, and talk about tailoring. All right. Now, when I say tailoring, we're not talking about those in fashion and designing. In project management, we have tailoring. It has nothing to do with cutting of cloths. It has to do with aligning of the various processes in your process groups and your knowledge areas to be able to get the intended outcome at the end of the day. So without further ado, let's jump in. All right. So welcome to this section. So what is processing? What do we tailor by tailoring? Tailoring involves customizing project management processes, methods, and practices to align with the specific characteristics of the project. Right? So it has to do with customizing the processes. In project management, we'll have 1,000,001 processes. All right. We usually say a project is a process of processes. When you have a project with processes within it. Okay. So when you have a project, you need to understand each of the small processes within them and how to customize them to a specific project within a specific industry so as to get that alignment and coherence within your project. So that's what tailoring is simply all about, so as to come up with the specific characteristics of your project. Now, why is tailoring important in project management? Now, let's look at the various reasons. Number one, projects vary. Projects differ in size, complexity, industry, and objectives. So in project management, we have different sizes of projects, ranging from installing a software in your computer to actually developing a business process or even improving on the business process, to recruitment, to setting up a department, to, creating even an entire company or an organization. So project define sizes. So each of these projects, whatever the size, has processes in it. So you need to know how those processes can work together to get you the intended result. One size does not fit all. Applying the same approach to all projects may lead to inefficiencies and inadequacies. So that is the essence of tailoring. You don't just use the same process or the same methodology for all your projects. You don't use the same approach. Okay, so you have to tailor the approaches you use for the various types of projects you'll be involved in, so as to get that intended result. If you don't do that, you have inefficiencies and inadequacies. at the end of the day. Now, another reason is to maximize effectiveness. Tailoring ensures that project management practices are suitable and relevant. So you need to adopt practices that are suitable to your specific project and that are also relevant. Now, what are the factors to consider in processing? First and foremost, project characteristics. You need to understand the characteristics of the project, right? You need to assess the project size, the complexity, the duration, and the goals. Okay. Secondly, organizational context. If you are a project manager within an organization, right, you have a project you are handling within an organization, you have to consider certain factors within the organization that could influence the project, right? And that includes organizational culture, the policies of the organization, and the standards of the industry that the organization is in, all right? All industries are not the same, from telecommunication to constructions have different standards, different policies, okay, that are guiding them. And within each industry, you have different organizations with different cultures, all right? So that's where tailoring becomes very, very imperative. You have to tailor your processes to be able to align with all these factors within the organizational context and also the industrial context as well. Also, stakeholder expectations. You need to adapt approaches to meet stakeholder needs and expectations. So, like we've talked about stakeholders and how their involvement in your project can impact or influence the outcome of your project. So you need to be able to tailor your processes to accommodate their needs and expectations. Okay. So what is the tailoring process? Now, firstly, you have to evaluate your project, understand the project details and requirements. Okay. Second, identify relevant practices. You need to select project management processes and techniques, okay, that are relevant to your project. Customize approaches, modify processes to align with project specifics. Very, very important. Implement and monitor the approaches and evaluate their effectiveness. All right. So you have to apply tailored approaches and evaluate effectiveness to your project. Okay. Now, what are the benefits? We looked at them before, but now let's I've mentioned them through the course of this section. But let's just look at them more specifically. Tailoring leads to more efficient, to better. So when you're able to align and customize your processes, you find that you are able to utilize your resources more effectively. And that is very, very important in project management, right? Proper and efficient resource mobilization and utilization is one of the key skills that will stand you out as a competent project manager. Enhanced alignment with stakeholder needs. So to avoid conflict or friction in your project, you need to be able to align your processes to your stakeholder needs. That will save you a lot of stress and headache as a project manager. Improved project outcomes. So if you're able to do these things well, at the end of the day, you have better outcomes. Okay. So that's that for tailoring. Now, what are the key takeaways from here? You've understood that tailoring is important in project management. You've understood the concept. It's all about customization and alignment of your project processes, right? Or the processes within your project to align with the characteristics. Recognize this. We've also considered the project characteristics, organizational context, and stakeholder expectations when tailoring. You know that you have to consider these things, okay, when you are tailoring, right? Now, you need to embrace tailoring as a way to enhance. Those are the key things that you need to take away from this section. Okay, so congratulations on exploring the concept of tailoring. We've been able to explore that concept in this section. So in the next section, we're going to be going into project management business documents, right? So I want to congratulate you. Keep up the great work, right? And let's proceed to the last section in this particular module, which is project management business document. So let's jump in right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, what we use as a project manager, you know, in every profession, you have your documents, right? You have your books. In project management, we have ours. So what are those documents that we use as project managers, right? And how do they contribute to effect planning and execution? Right? So come along with me as we begin to look at them, okay? So project management business documents are essential tools that capture project-related information, decision, execution, and right. So there are those tools that we use to capture information, all right? Tools that help us to make decisions, all right? And then also to guide us in planning our project, executing our project, and also controlling the outcomes of the project, okay? So what are the types of project management business documents that we have? Number one, project charter. Project charter. This is a document that formally authorizes a project, initial project details. Okay, very, very important. So the project charter encompasses everything about the project. Look at it more like a business plan, right? So the project charter is more like a business plan for the project. It houses the needs, the justification, the stakeholders, the sponsors, the objectives, the budget, everything about the project. And then, most importantly, authorizes the project, right? And if you're working within the context of an organization, it gives the project manager the mandate to be able to apply organizational resources to that project. Okay. Next, we have project management plan. This is a comprehensive document outlining how the project will be executed, information necessary for execution, monitoring, and control of your project. Next, we have scope statement. The scope statement defines the project's boundaries, deliverables, and that's a document form. And then I talked about that initially when we were talking about project scope management. Work breakdown structure. This is the hierarchical breakdown of project tasks. Okay, the project sometimes could be a behemoth, right? So as they say, the best way to eat an elephant is to break it down into bits, right? So the same thing with a project, especially complex projects. So the work breakdown structure helps us to break down the project into tasks and activities that we can handle individually. Okay. So next is the project register. Talked about project risk management in the last section. So you cannot manage risk if you don't know what your risks are. Okay, so the risk register is a catalog of all the potential risks and mitigation. So you need to have um, all the risks that you're going to encounter in the project. You need to have them in perspective, and also how you plan to mitigate them, the strategies you're going to use to mitigate them. This is all about. This outlines the communication goals, methods, and stakeholders. Remember, I talked about project communication management. So this document helps you to outline your communication goals. What do you intend to achieve from the email to your stakeholders? What method do you need to use in communicating this information to have the maximum effect? Right? Who and who are you talking to? Right? At what time do you need to get this information? Do you understand? So that's what the communication plan is all about. Change management plan is the next one. This addresses how changes will be managed during the project. So I mentioned before, during the life cycle of the project, say change is the only constant thing, right? In project management, you need to envisage the changes that are coming, changes in prices, which are going to affect your contracts one way or the other, right? Changes in policies, all right? So you need to understand this, even changing in seasons. You need to understand how these changes are going to impact on your project, and then have laid down strategies on how you are going to approach them. Okay, change management, very, very important. Quality management plan. This details the quality assurance and control measures. So for every project, you have your objective, you have your product. So that product has specifications, all right, in terms of quality. So this quality management plan helps you to have all the details about how you're going to manage your quality and make sure that it is consistent throughout the life cycle of the project. Now let's look at benefits, purpose and benefits of the project management business document. Number one, they provide clarity. Documents define project scope, objectives, and processes. So it gives clarity to you as a project manager. It helps you to establish baselines, performance measurement. Okay. Thirdly, ensures accountability. These documents assign responsibility to stakeholders. So you know who's responsible for what. You know who to hold accountable for each responsibility or each task within your project. They also enhance communication. Now, clear documentation supports effective communication. So when you have clarity, when you have to enhance your communication risks. So this document also helps us to mitigate risk. We mentioned the risk register, and that helps you to anticipate and manage potential issues. Now, it is one thing to know that you have documents. It's one thing to have documents. It's another thing to also understand that these documents are evolving. They ought to be evolving. And what do you mean by that? We're talking about updating your project management business documents. You have to keep updating them as more information is made available to you during the life cycle of the project. The project management business documents, they are dynamic tools. Okay, they don't stay more information, it will be adding them, updating them. Okay. All right. So what are the key takeaways from this section? Obviously, we'll be able to understand the significance of, we'll be able to also familiarize ourselves with the essential types of business documents that we have. We've recognized the purposes and benefits of using these documents. Then also, we embrace the importance of keeping documents up to date throughout the project life cycle. So must keep them up to date. All right. So this brings us to the end of the ends model. All right. Introduction to projects and the PMI framework. Introduction to project management and the PMI framework. Okay. Fantastic job. Fantastic job, I must say. I'm going through this model, which I believe you have. If you have not been following, you need to go back to all the past classes, check out the videos, and ensure that you are up to date. Okay, that is very, very important. So we've concluded the week one, introduction to project management. And the PMI framework will be a quiz. So check the link, right? Ensure to check the link that will be sent to you so as to go ahead and take the quiz. It's a very short quiz, and it's actually meant to test your assimilation and how much you've been able to grab from the model we have covered so far, right? So in the coming weeks, we're going to be going into in project encourage you to ensure to visit the PMBOK guide that you have. All right, visit them. Apart from attending the classes, watching the videos, you need to also marry that your PMBOK guide. All right, because everything we'll be discussing so far is actual PMBOK guide. All right, so I want to congratulate you for being able to complete this module, and I want to encourage you to go ahead and take the quiz and submit it, possibly before our next class. Okay, then we'll take it from there. So from this end, congratulate you, and I'll see you in our next class. Bye for now.